A package with the wrong last name, one check mark in the wrong box, and the snow starts counting bodies more accurately than any report. Someone else's package. Snow lay over the street like a printed receipt. Totals line up, but one line smudged by a damp finger. Ellen Jackson, 42, accountant for the Sudsy Moose Car Wash chain, slammed the trunk of a silver Toyota Camry and tapped the lid 3 times with her palm, got the dull sound she wanted. On the foyer mat, she squared a folded Star Tribune so the edge ran strictly parallel to the threshold, then knocked her soles together. Parka on the winter hook bag left tile, keys teeth to the right, orders like a formula that calculates on the first try. A box on the porch was already wet at the corners. Label, Jackson, 841 Wijan CT, last name missing a letter, like an extra 0 in the middle of a quarterly. Ellen picked the tape with a nail and peeled the strip in one clean vein tidy. Inside, a red case. Not Hoover wind tunnel filters, like the procurement list said, but a chain, metal cold as a garage handle in January. She lifted it to the mirror. It fell across her collarbone exactly on the line, like someone took a measurement. Her breath held, like before hitting save. Doorbell. She closed the case, slipped it into the gray robe pocket, and opened up. On the step, Marty from 2 doors down, Minnesota wild knit cap, cheeks pink with cold, 2 Cub Foods bags in hand. Snow, he said. Yeah. Yeah, Ellen said. He raised a bag. Eggs were on sale, grabbed extra if needed. Ellen nodded, letting the pause settle. Marty glanced at her perfectly squared rug, at his own prints, shifted to make them symmetrical, then stepped back. The cap slid sideways. He fixed it like a signature that dropped below the line. He didn't enter and didn't insist. The door closed soft. Ellen switched the foyer light back on. Metal in the mirror flashed yellow, polite, no glare. The thought "wear it tonight" came on its own, like autofill in an address field. Return it in the morning. Neighbor Harper lives across the street. 814, not 841, digits flipped. She went to the kitchen, opened her notebook, wrote, "Return morning, 7:45. Next to it she added a small 3 times, without thinking, as a note to self. Phone buzzed, a blast about tomorrow's inventory check. Another line in the list, like a new column in a pivot. Ellen opened the sock drawer, black, gray, for emergencies. She found the empty cell on the diagonal, set the case there, and pushed the drawer shut in 3 short nudges so it sat square. From the street came the whine of a snowblower. In Harper's house across the way, the porch light blinked 3 times, equal intervals. Ellen paused in the kitchen doorway and marked the rhythm, 1, 2, 3. Their intercom-'s been acting up, the sound scratching glass with a fine line. She returned to the notebook and, without erasing, traced a neat oval around the 3 times by return, as if the audit wasn't only for things. A Stouffer's lasagna barely hummed in the oven. The detergent report waited for a final reconcile, 2 lines off by a cent. She tugged the utensil drawer, squared the dividers to 90, and clicked the foyer light off. The hallway went gray, like an empty cell in a sheet. I'll return it in the morning, Ellen thought, and the thought slid into place like a correctly filled check. Her hand automatically tested 3 lock clicks on the door. Inside, everything sat on its shelf, case in its cell, note marked paper by the threshold. Outside, the snow kept falling, even and calm, like lines someone else will finish. Morning spread over the street like a gray pancake, the day laid down in straight ruled lines like a notebook where the kid still keeps tempo. Ellen stepped out at 8:10, later than planned, and came back for the notebook, clicking the pen twice and a third time to fix. In the sock drawer, the red case sat in the diagonal cell. She only glanced, didn't touch. The thought return in the morning slid to evening. The car wash audit demanded reconcile. The checkmark moved 1 line down. Harper's porch had a dark snow arc. The intercom sniffed softly, like it wanted to object. The door opened on a chain. A young cop in navy, latex gloves over winter gloves, fingers tacky to the air. Behind her, Mrs. Harper with a mug that didn't steam. Morning, the cop said, quiet. Address confirm. I'm across the street, said Ellen, showing the notebook. The cop flipped a tablet, tapped with a stylus. 3 alerts bounced in a row, a little rhyme to 3 blinks. She dictated. Last name. Jackson. The cop typed Jackson and H instead of CK. The error slotted clean in the line, like a tile mise set that only shows to someone who knows where to look. For my daughter, Harper said, jewelry rehearsals today. The word jewelry weighed the air. Ellen nodded. Meant to return it, didn't get to it. The cop ticked something, the stylist clicked, fingers hovered. She looked at the house across, then at Ellen. If you find it, she said, call right away. No DIY gestures. A white Ford Explorer hummed at the curb. A donut box bobbed in back, one left with sprinkles. Exhaust smoked thick as a form crosshatch. Next, Cub Foods, light, flat, and cold like a spreadsheet page. Linda scanned pasta and deer napkins, talked with an older guy about returns without a receipt. Ellen grabbed coffee, paid in coins, checking the total out of habit. At the service counter, a kid in a thin bomber shuffled, jeans and dirty slush, hat down to the brow. Ricky was anyone yet, just a look hunting for an exit arrow. Linda pointed with two fingers through the window at the fork of the street, toward Harper and toward Ellen. Ricky didn't ask the address, he translated the gesture to a simple trajectory. He drew a small arrow on his palm with a pen. Numbers wouldn't hold in his head. Lifted off the steps, said a man with a Sam badge. Got cameras. We got cameras, Linda shrugged. Who's watching? Ricky rolled his shoulder to the door, held it a second too long. Wind riffled a receipt like an accordion. In the lot, Marty brushed his gray Toyota Tacoma in wide arcs like a ruled field. He saw Ellen, lifted the brush, smiled with the corner of his mouth. Look, he showed his phone, a map with pins. First black ice, longest crust, Harper's triple blink, making an atlas for myself. Ellen looked, the pins sat in neat rows, names dead serious and silly. Marty wiped a smudge with his thumb, traced back to not move a pin, picky warmth in place of a scarf. Useful, she said. An old sedan jerked by the edge of the lot, engine whined and cut. Trevor, Marty's nephew, climbed out, pulled his hood up. Came over chewing caramel, the wrapper rustled inside his sleeve. Ellen, he stumbled. Miss Ellen, starter, maybe look, couple bucks to borrow, I'll return little later. Wrapper went faster like a nerve metronome. Ellen checked the time and shook her head. After the reconcile. Trevor nodded, hiding the letdown in the chewing. Marty slid him a screwdriver without comment, a look for don't get involved. The brush swished the glass again, the arc came out straighter than before. A block over, Ricky looped between 814 and 841, leaving twin tracks, carbon copies. One entry's intercom chirped and died, the other flashed green like an invite, a black arrow on his palm. He checked it and went where Linda's gesture seemed simpler. The cop with Harper filled the report, the tablet popped 3 alerts again. She tugged a glove off with her teeth to fix a letter in a field, but didn't get back. Radio called her away. The typo stayed alive in the form. In the fridge door reflection, Ellen saw her profile and the straight line of her mouth, standard work face. At the supermarket exit, Linda called. Minute, if they ask, say I did switch the camera on, for the record. Ellen nodded, the warm cup slid into her pocket. The day's gray ruled lines held steady so far. Outside smelled like wet cardboard and road salt melting off boots. Ellen thought about the Jackson error and how neatly it would seat in any database if no one puts the letter back. Marty spun the map, dropped a new pin, slippery Harper S. His fingers remembered the distance between points better than any numbers. In the evening, Ellen decided return it. Simple operation, rug, bell, one step back, then report. Order prefers sequence over truth. A pale sun showed through like a faded stamp, no one refreshed for the new quarter. By noon, the snow turned grainy and gray, like sugar spilled on a mat. Ellen shut her laptop, the lid lined up flush with the stand, ran her palm across the table, putting out invisible crumbs of care. A knock at the door, 2 short taps, a third longer. She counted 5 and opened. A man in a dark parka, folder under his arm, face calm, gaze clear like ice along a puddle's edge. He flashed a card with no logo, number, and initials. Doyle about the package, yeah. He didn't enter at first, took a napkin from his pocket, carefully wiped the edge of the stool by the wall, set his folder down, squared it to the edge, checked the lock with 2 soft clicks. His lines were short. Address mix-up, jewelry warehouse, verify. Saw the box, Ellen said, meant to return. He nodded like checking a box, slid out a blank form, checked that the lines ran strictly in columns, nudged it a millimeter. Fingertips dry as cardboard. Better through us, he said, paper to paper. Pause, the dishwasher clicked, the sour smell of cheap coffee Ellen hadn't brewed. Doyle eyed the foyer, logging the aligned hooks, the squared newspaper on the mat, as if that exhausted the contents of the home. If you find it, he said, call no independent actions. He placed the card on the shelf edge, squared to the seam like a draftsman, left as quietly, checking the door. A small coldness and a right angle from the folder remained in memory. On the porch, Marty sat on the step sorting road salt, pouring from 3 bags into 3 plastic tubs, fine, medium, coarse. Labels in marker on blue tape, crumb, grain, pinch. He scooped with a spoon, squinted, put back the misfit crystals. See, he asked without looking up, the fraction wanders, this crust crawls under that. Doyle stopped by, Ellen said, paperwork. Sure, he nodded, pouring exactly to the mark, paper loves paper, salt too if the bags are dry. At the corner, a service pickup blinked hazards 3 times, short, even pauses. Doyle, unhurried, talked on the phone, listening longer than he spoke. Address mix-up check, yaw. From far off, twin tracks drew over the snow like carbon copies. Ricky paced between 814 and 841, checked the plaques in his palm. The pen arrow had smeared from damp, left blotches. He stopped, matched the gesture Linda had tossed through glass this morning, and went to Ellen's house, like trajectory mattered more than address. An unmarked security SUV circled the block and parked with its headlights aside. A polite look, not in the eyes. One guard ate a donut in the cabin, the other paged a sop, cupping from snow. Doyle passed, gave a micronod like a man who doesn't waste words when there are procedures. Ellen brought out trash, a sack with paper and empty detergent boxes. Without looking, Marty slid the grain tub closer to the edge. Use medium, he said, fine clumps, coarse cracks, middles for steps. She set the bag down, watching him measure to the line with neat concentration. It was easier to talk fraction size than responsibility. Ricky tested the intercom at 841, beep and silence. At 814, the lamp under the overhang flicked once and froze. He stepped down, put his boot into old tracks, laid his own over, doubled. The arrow smeared, a dark wedge remained. He wiped it on his jacket and saw the service truck blink 3 short hazard bursts again. He took it for a sign without grasping the meaning. Doyle returned to Ellen just to nudge the card back to perpendicular. Someone had shifted it 1/2 centimeter and the line went crooked. He didn't comment, just fixed it and left. Marty poured the last scoops, tapped the spoon on the rim, the extra settled. Done, he said, pleased with his to the mark. The rest as it goes. Evening moved at one speed. Cars hissed, radios clicked, and no one quarreled with order. In these small gestures, wipe a stool, square a paper, sort salt by fraction, sat the conversations no one wanted out loud. Somewhere past the roofs, porch lights came on, first one then another. Sometimes 3 at once, like someone was testing the neighborhood's attention. Ellen locked the door with 1 click, returned and added the second, so Doyle wouldn't fret the deadbolt by proxy. Twilight laid a film, visible, untouchable. Ellen put on a parka, dot-grip gloves, slid the notebook in her pocket, the red case into a paper recycling bag, write-offs, old statements. Simple plan, Matt Bell stepped back. Harper's porch lamp blinked 3 times with equal pauses. First trigger. Ellen stopped on the bottom step, a peephole camera under the overhang. The intercom panel popped a red LED. Second trigger. She set the bag by the door, nudged it with her toe into the shadow so it wasn't street visible. The camera blinked a reflection. Trevor came out of the dark, hood up, sharp shoulders, a wrapper rustling faster than usual in his pocket, a coffee stir stick in the other hand. Later, Ellen said, calm. He nodded, snapped the stir stick, a splinter pinged. Backing away, his elbow brushed a thin cable along the wall, barely a centimeter, but enough. The intercom clicked, the red LED brightened, a short beep rang in the metal. Trevor froze, choked the wrapper, started chewing in 2 beats. Cameras like stillness better than motion. A security SUV rolled up and set its light sideways. Door opened. 2 guys, one with a radio, one with a travel mug. Radio guy raised a palm. Stop. No bark. Don't touch it, he said. Document. Doyle stepped from his car half a body later, zipped his collar. One gesture, palm parallel to the ground. Pause. He noted bag, LED camera, nothing else. Ellen slid the bag closer to the door, half a palm. Fear and the need to complete a motion met in one short bend. The camera caught the wrist, tagged placement. On the guard's screen, a light frame popped beside the entry icon. Ricky skimmed in over a crust that crunched too softly for what it was. He saw the bag as a simple target, not words, not people, a vector. Up 2 steps, yank. The bag gave, the seam ran. White write-off pages flared and blew across the porch. The red case rolled to the edge, kissed the rubber mat, hopped under the railing into wet snow. Hold up, the guard said. No threat, just a manual line. Trevor stepped down crooked like someone had pulled a support he didn't see. The heel slid on a wafer of ice that outlived the day's thaw. His hand grabbed the rail, slid. The fall took less than a second. The sound was short, wooden neck met the stair's edge. The body stopped immediately, no extra gesture, no breath. Radio, fall, victim, nothing more on that. Inside Harper's a TV ran. Cooking show, host calm, salt goes round the edge even so it won't clump. In the doorway, salt crumbs mixed with blood and water, and the line came out neat, like a demo. The host's voice was a manual for an appliance. Ricky hit the Camry, ripped the trunk, grabbed the first bag, fabric, the car wash logo, didn't check the contents. He tried to shut the lid, missed the latch, it popped back, the spring shoved it like the wrong field in a form. Meanwhile, an F-150, slipping around a puddle and a person in the street, lurched in reverse. The driver's knee rode with the truck. The bumper bumped a man stepping out of a neighboring entry. The man went back, head hit the metal rim of a street bin, sat down fast like a bag of salt cut at the side. His milk carton burst, a white stream mixed with gray crumbs, and for a second the picture looked like winter. Medical both, the guard said into the radio. 2 locations, no code. Linda stepped onto the supermarket stoop, a house down, squinted, raised her phone but didn't film. Asked the guard beside her, barely above a whisper. Can I mop the tile now? Fresh comes up easier. He looked at her mop, gave a tiny nod, face unchanged. Not permission, absence of objection. Deeper in Harper's, the cooking host neatly floured the pie edge, reminding about evenness. The ambulance slid in quick, chirped 3 shorts before stopping, like some systems love repeating a sign so it's seen. Medics moved silently, deployed the kit by muscle memory, knelt by Trevor's head, looked down, then at each other, brief, no words. By the bin with milk, the second crew did the same, only faster. Warm steam lifted from the white spill into gray air. Hugging the bag, Ricky walked the lot's dark edge, fewer eyes, more shadow. Slush held him that half-second at every step. He stubbed a hidden lip of ice and almost dropped his prize. Doyle turned his head toward him, not hurrying. Didn't run, didn't shout. He watched like jotting a mental note on trajectory. The guard said one thing on the radio. Runner no pursuit record. Ellen stood on the bottom step, notebook tight to her side, like the paper could cancel anything. The pages crackled inside, answered in her fingers. Her eyes clung to a red corner, but the snow already drew it down, smoothing the shape the way water eats ink. Marty reached Trevor, set his brush on the stair, went to his knees, his jeans soaked instantly. He said the name once, then again, and then just breathed. Linda stood on the edge of the mat and did run a mop across the tile, short, in one direction, leaving a light strip that darkened again. There wasn't coldness in it, there was mechanics. When everything's falling apart, people love cleaning rules. Harper's TV told how to cut the edges so the filling won't ooze. The ambulance loaded one gurney, one body closed, the other left. At both spots stains remained, different colors, equally flat. Radio concluded, point A, point B perimeter, nothing else. A headlight blinked once, incidental touch. Evening without changing pace rolled to its predictable output. Two accidents like two lines of a report slotted side by side. Ricky slipped between houses with his exit arrow and an empty bag instead of an answer. Ellen looked at the empty threshold, no objects left, but the feel of an object lived in the air. She closed her eyes for a second. When she opened them, the snow still fell the same, one equal grain at a time, like that might fix something. Slush held a soul a half-second longer than needed, like a sticky price tag. Security headlights stood sideways, polite light, not in the eyes. Under the rail in the wet mash, a red corner still showed, only someone who knew where to look could see it. Radio said dryly, porch, observe, enough for the scene to count as started. Ricky pressed the torn paper sack to his chest. White sheets clung to his jacket, numbers flashed and drowned in snowy water. He wasn't hunting jewelry, he was hunting a simple vector from here to there. Down the street a stream of headlights ran, closer a dark F-150 crept the ruts, driver looking at a screen. Ricky stepped off the stair, clipped his toe, corrected, and ran to the open Camry trunk that hadn't latched. There's always there. On the porch, Trevor stood crooked, like his prop was pulled unseen. The wrapper went wet in his fist, fingers stuck. He took a careful step, like on glass, heel slid on a thin hinge of ice that had survived daytime warmth. His hand found the rail, slipped. The drop was instant, the sound short, wooden, no extra motion. Inside Harper's, the TV host kept salting the edges evenly to avoid clumping. In the doorway, salt grain mixed with blood and water, a demonstration line as tidy as a brochure. Ricky hit the Camry, ripped it for a bag with the Wash logo, and left. The F-150 jolted while avoiding the puddle and a person, tapped an old man, milk burst, and the second accident landed like an invoice error. Small inputs, big outputs. The guard called for 2 runs, no code. Linda mopped because fresh does lift easier. Doyle watched trajectory like a surveyor. Ellen held a notebook that couldn't subtract anything from what had happened. Marty breathed because there was nothing else to do that would do any good. The station smelled like paper, damp synthetics, and machine coffee. The light was flat as an unformatted page. Ellen sat at a metal table, notebook banded, hands on her knees. Across, a sergeant with soft lids, a voice that hides sharp words behind pauses. Off to the side, Doyle, folder tucked, movements efficient, a man who puts things at right angles. Facts, the sergeant said. Package, address error, your intent to return to deceased. He didn't raise his voice, each word seated in a line. Ellen nodded. Hands stayed on her knees, safer from extra gestures. The door cracked, Marty peered in, hat in hands, gazed down. He didn't cross the threshold like there was a line. Say, he started and stopped. The sergeant nodded, closing the topic with a small gesture. In the next room, through glass, Linda narrated how she turned the camera on for the record and how the kid at the counter drew an arrow on his palm. Her voice was as clerical as when she rings up pasta. The clerk's pages rustled, steady, not interfering. Doyle sat, wiped the chair edge with a napkin, placed his folder, squared it to the table. Chain of errors, he said, simple, 2 digits swapped on the street in the waybill. The bill to address checkbox left on. Autocomplete collapsed the intercom code with the entry code. Small cells on a screen, big thumb landed next door. He showed a blank with cells, ran a finger across, they were tiny. Patrol cemented a typo in the report, he went on. Security mixed test with alert. System decided for people, that's it. The sergeant wrote it as plain lines in one paragraph, no abbreviations. Underlined mix-up and checkmark. Set the pen down so it wouldn't roll. Formally, he said, you didn't appropriate anything, but you broke the return procedure. A judge might call that uncertain retention. Fines possible. Informally, a pause, the timing was bad. A young lieutenant came with a tablet. On Ricky, unauthorized use, resisting interference with procedure, he listed. On the F-150 driver, phone distraction, traffic, and civil, we got video. That's sufficient, the sergeant said. He looked at Ellen, no sympathy, no hardness, like a dry total row. There's a way to move this quicker, he added. Consult on a small garage tax quirk, off docket, in return the case goes short, makes sense. He said it quietly, like offering an extra receipt in a bag. Ellen didn't answer right away. A printer in the hall thumped out, except with signature. Down the corridor someone swore over a broken freezer. Pizzas had to be moved within 30 minutes per policy. No one changed tone, though two deceased lay in the next file. Marty coughed in the doorway. 3 blinks, he said into the air. Yesterday at Harper's, thought it looked nice, turns out a sign. Doyle nodded without looking. There was a sign, no one read it. He pulled a form over, squared it to the table's edge by eye, nudged for flush corners. Not pedantry for pedantry, a way to hold a line when everything runs. Linda passed with 2 vending coffees, set one in front of Ellen. By the rules when waiting, she said, hot helps not to think. Ellen took a sip, flat taste like the room's light. She opened her notebook to return, 7:45. The little square stayed blank, the pen lay in her fingers, didn't move. Sometimes an empty box is truer than a wrong checkmark. The sergeant pulled over the red case in an evidence bag, read the tag, clean font, correct date, the code with the 2 digits now in the right order, after the fact. He set the bag where papers wait for signatures. Formally, deposit item and statement, he said. Informally, go home, paper travels without you. The lieutenant added a sheet titled Causes, Human Factor, 3 bullets, 1 sentence each, short, clear, nothing extra. Ricky's hearing Wednesday, the lieutenant said. Doyle testifies, your presence optional. Doyle stood, straightened his chair, wiped a thread of dust that maybe wasn't there. Checked the door lock with 2 clicks, habit stronger than protocol. Security updates the test signal procedure, he said. We'll post reminders, large font. A stack of files rolled past to the archive cart. On the spine of a new box, Portland jewelry miner. Below, corrected, in marker. The box slid between slip injuries and yard thefts. A clip-width gap stayed for the next case. The sergeant touched his pen to receiving signature, looked at Ellen. She signed in short strokes, like figures, they came out straighter. Coffee still steamed. In the hall, 2 people argued whether a partially thawed pizza was fresh if it went back into the freezer within 18 minutes. The argument mattered more than it sounded. All right, the sergeant said. Formally, that's it. He didn't smile, didn't gloom. Paper doesn't have those moods. Ellen stood. Marty stepped aside. In the glass door, her shoulder line was straight as a table edge. Before leaving, Doyle said quietly, small cells, big thumb, next time watch closer. It wasn't a lecture, it was a report. Ellen nodded, no promises. Outside, the snow fell fine and exact, like someone finally picked the right grain size. In her pocket, the notebook pressed her palm with its spine. The little square by return stayed empty. Sometimes emptiness is the only thing that doesn't distort the original data. Snow turned to small pellets, tapping the hood like a stapler on a fat file. The station lived on printer hum and folder rustle. 2 archive carts in the hall, lids labeled with dates and tidy marker script. Ellen stood at the property counter, a rubber band from her notebook in her palm. It left a pale groove like a ring's shadow. Marty beside her worried his cap, twisted it till it squeaked, then smoothed it. A cap should sit even, or the head freezes along the edges. Linda brought 2 cups of machine coffee, set them on the counter edge, nodded without questions, the habit of covering pauses with practical motions. A door clicked, they walked Ricky out, wrists in plastic ties, gaze lost like a receipt without a total. Dried brown flecks on his knees. He walked soft, like trying not to make extra sounds, still hitting every second tile. Behind him, a guard carried a clear sack of belongings, the torn fabric bag with the Wash logo, a thermos, a crushed cookie box. No red case inside. It already sat in a separate little box in an office tagged evidence. The tag lay square, even corners, hole punched dead center, a rare coincidence. Court on Wednesday, the lieutenant said, eyes on the tablet. Small charges, big consequences, guilty on paper, not guilty in sense, but we don't have sense in columns, yeah. Doyle came later like a signature you add last, jacket zipped to the chin, frost crumbs on the collar. He didn't approach Ellen, he went to the bulletin board, pinned a sheet, procedure for test signal updated. The staple sat exactly along the print line like it belonged. He turned to the sergeant, gave a brief nod. The sergeant spread his hands. Sorted, the sergeant said. Checkmark in the wrong box. Autocomplete grabbed a code. Patrol baked the typo in. Security flipped the protocol and the driver got distracted. That's that. 2 dead. Formally, accidents with aggravators. Marty cleared his throat. 3 blinks at Harper's, he said to nobody. Like a tree, thought it was nice, turns out a sign, well yeah. Well yeah, Doyle said, eyes down. The sign was there, no one read it. Linda nudged Ellen's coffee closer. The steam was weak, like from an old kettle. Here, she said, by the rules, when you wait, coffee. Ellen nodded, the rubber band warmed her palm. In memory surfaced the empty little square by return, and how a sleeve drop put a dot in the wrong place. Cause now sat neatly explained in 3 places, in the guard's report, in the patrol's write-up, in the supplier's conclusion. The wording drifted by 1 step in each, but converged on a single phrase, human factor. The words looked like someone else's boots by the door, right size, not yours. Down the hall, 1 box went to archive. The spine already read, closed. Beside it lay a clean folder with a white sticker, space for the next case, no title yet, only a date. The printer spat a receipt. The sergeant gave Ellen a pen. She signed short, like tallying a bad weather day's take. Taking his copy, Doyle lingered a second on the signature, said nothing, not his column. Formally, we're done, said the sergeant. Informally, go live, the rest runs itself. Marty exhaled and, as if tidying the space, neatly hung his cap on the visitor hook, then immediately took it and put it back on. Linda called someone to the stockroom. Pizzas were getting written off. The thermostat was shot. Life didn't wait for pauses. Out by the car, the snow squeaked like pencil on card. Ellen stopped at her Camry, shut the trunk so the dull thud landed right. Her notebook was on the seat. She opened to the line she needed. The square next to return was still empty, and that strangely calmed her. Some cells are better left untouched. In the yard across, Harper's lamp blinked once like a yawn. The intercom kept still. Inside the station, behind glass, another box slid onto a shelf. On the spine, in marker, Portland Jewelry Minor. Below, corrected. The folder took its slot like a tile in even layout. A clip-thin gap remained for the next story where maybe someone checks the wrong box again. Epitaph line, the check marks in the wrong box, the snow is everywhere.